gentlemen, thank you very much for being here with us this evening in the city of Nawabs, Lucknow. And I must thank Mr. Awasthi for setting us off on this very nice buoyant note. Thanks for your thoughts and some of the stats that you presented. Let me start with you, Mr. Mishra. We are talking about this journey of financial inclusion, almost 5-6 years old, since the RBI put forward a vision. How do you encapsulate things as they stand right now?
Let me just take a minute to explain what is this program called financial inclusion. So financial inclusion starts with financial literacy, then financial inclusion per se, then consumer protection. All these three together are called the consolidated program of financial inclusion. And even research have shown, cross-country researches, wherever financial, the index of financial inclusion is more, the countries which are having financial inclusion index more, their poverty ratio is less. So let us start from that. So that means, and the point I will take from, I think my earlier speaker told, that still half of the population do not have even bank accounts. So that is a debatable point, because we have come to a stage where we have almost taken that every household, at least the women member of the household, has a bank account. So that phase is almost over. And second is through these outreach programs. So our banker friends has done it, they have done, perceptions may differ, but I have also visited about more than 30 villages in Uttar Pradesh so far, and have seen the enthusiasm of the bankers and some of the BCs here. And the fact that, and I have seen how people have grown over that. We have seen 6 months back, the ladies who were shown as the most vulnerable, having lost her husband, nobody to look after, no money. And right in front of me, they were included as in the part of women SHG. That is the first stage of financial inclusion. Then they will be asked to contribute little money. Then NABARD will come in. So banks will open their account. And 20 ladies will be made together to do a business. They will be taken to free of charge, I emphasize, again by a bank. Every district, so there is a root city, rural development training centers. These women, illiterate women, will be taken there to train on a particular area, like beauty parlor, mobile repair, and then bank will lend them money to set up their own business. So what does this mean? So instilling a sense of first learning how to do a little entrepreneurship, as well as to give them the financial power also to stand on themselves. So UP being, about the slowness you told, as Mr. Awasthi told, it is 92,000 villages. So tagging on has been done. So you will be happy to note, all 92 villages in Uttar Pradesh have been tagged on to one bank and a branch to provide banking services. And what kind of banking services will be given? Banks have already planned and given their program to Reserve Bank of India. And the third stage will be when they will achieve what level. So every month we have a statement to monitor that. So by 2015-16, all that has to be accomplished.
Mr. Bansal, let me ask you the banker's point of view. Is this just a mandate that has to be fulfilled because it's a criteria that's put out by the regulator, or is there real business value here for a bank to go down to that grassroots level?
You know, one point of time, reaching to the villages and doing the banking was considered to be an obligation on part of the bank. But now I see a lot of opportunity in doing this business. We were thinking serving poor is not a profitable model for the bank, but now of late we realized it is very profitable model, and banking with the poor and the lowest person at the pyramid is very profitable, provided.
So what has changed? What has got about this new thinking?
New thinking is that a lot of money available there. 50% of the population in India which is unbanked, if formal banking is available to them at a very low cost model, which is a doable thing, will give a lot of business at low cost, maybe saving or current or the CASA, and that bringing that much money to the banking channel, banking system will be very profitable to the banks. And what is that profitable model to bring that, capture that flow is what financial inclusion is turning around now. Because bank, as if we want to reach to every village, probably may not be very feasible model. But what is now coming is ultra small branches or the business correspondent model is becoming stage by stage profitable in I think it's a very formidable job done by the banks and the government together. And the Reserve Bank of India, of course, as a regulator has played their role, told us a perfect KYC model to be done. See that the safety of money is very foremost preserved in the hand of the banks. And now when we give this task to the business correspondent to handle the handheld devices, do the job on behalf of bank, what is most challenging is the to maintain the corporate governance, the integrity part, because the transaction, the cash which they are dealing of the illiterate, poor people who do not know any ABCD of the bank and the banking, to give them the banking services is a real challenge, which is gradually being addressed by the banks, by the many agencies which are involved. Now the ultra small branches, what Mr. Awasthi also mentioned and what our Reserve Bank Regional Director said, is one step forward, because once what we are actually doing is opening ultra small branches, a person going with a laptop sitting in the bank in the village doing the transaction. What we see that in case the transactions are more, that place we feel is a viable place and we can open a small branch there. And if what the UP Principal Finance Secretary said, that we will provide the infrastructure to open the branch and facilitate this, I'm very happy that this kind of initiative and the endeavor from the state government will help bank to provide the banking services.
Dr. Sinha, your thoughts on this? When we're talking about looking at this as a viable business option as well, and not just a mandate which has come out from the regulator or the government. Do you agree with that?
Well, let me put it this way. You know, if you go back and look at the rural landscape, say 20 years ago, largely the income in the rural areas were originating from agriculture. If you look at the rural landscape today, then it is pretty obvious that more than 33% of the income that is getting generated in rural areas are not agricultural income, they are non-agricultural income. And in fact, in the recent years, if you look at the data, then even in the rural areas, services sector has been growing at the fastest pace. So all of this has changed the rural landscape. So the viability of a banking sector or viability of doing business with the rural population has acquired a new meaning and a new dimension today. So something which was not profitable or was not viable, say 10 years, 15 years, 20 years ago, is today viable because the income generations are more stable or diversified in that sense. It's not just monsoon dependent, that one monsoon failure and suddenly people have no ability to service the debt or even buy their normal thing. So if the landscape is changing, then certainly the institutions, the services, the banking will accordingly evolve, and they will find that this is a more viable business today. Yes, the challenge would still remain because these are not so easily accessible, maybe the volumes are not there, but yes, through innovations, through technology, through various other support structure which either the state government or the central government is putting forward, you can certainly create a viable model.
Government of India along with Reserve Bank had pushed all banks to go into the core banking solutions. Actually, that is the first part of doing the financial inclusion.
Let's get Mr. Chindala on this as well. Sir, in your experience at NABARD, what have you seen in the last couple of years?
So now we have a kind of a peculiar mandate, maybe I can say, because along with the Reserve Bank of India, NABARD, actually we both are the pioneers in pushing this financial inclusion as a kind of an effort in the country. And if you see that now self-help groups, as Ravi Mishra was telling, that this was the first of its kind where really the people who are absolutely not connected to any of the systems were brought into the banking fold, and they were made into a kind of a groups and linked. Another crux of the thing that had happened in the last 6 years, ever since this financial inclusion had happened, Government of India along with Reserve Bank had pushed all banks to go into the core banking solutions. Actually, that is the first part of doing the financial inclusion, because ultimately now the transactions have become so transparent. Absolutely, now actually the connectivity has become very easy. So now the next step that has to go into it, because now I will come into my second role as the director of the Bangladesh Institute of Rural Development, where every year we train close to around 7,000 to 8,000 people, maybe, and we do quite a lot of research and all those things. When we do this kind of a thing, we found that there are some things which are yet to be tied up, because that the mission mode is good and it is happening, but still I think we have to have quite a lot of a way to cross, because it's a very complicated issue, because India is a country where the same thing, because now if you see the financial inclusion success, it was so successful in the southern India where every village has got a bank branch. But actually this financial inclusion originally was supposed to be in maybe the UP, Bihar and these kind of places where this 1 lakh villages, 2 lakh villages have to be brought into it. So now that is where I think now the efforts are being redeemed and things are happening. And I wish that maybe, as Mishra ji was telling, that I think 2016 is not a very far off kind of a timeline, and we have to really put the systems in place.
Tamal, some thoughts, because we've seen so much in the last couple of years. We've seen, of course, a lot of talk about financial inclusion, the BC model. We've seen huge challenges that the microfinance industry, on the other hand, has faced. Now there's plenty of talk about electronic benefits transfer and cashless and Aadhaar, and there's so much going on parallelly, isn't there?
You first admit that I am not qualified to talk on UP per se, but on the macro level, I do share the optimism of Dr. Mishra and this NABARD, but I don't think much is happening. Yes, in terms of numbers, but numbers are not. I'll just give you a few numbers. If you look at number of branches, 1969, when the first set of banks, 14 banks were nationalized, we had 8,000 branches. Now it's more than 12 times, about 1 lakh branches. 1.1 lakh ATMs. So numbers are fine. If you look at closer in the past 1 decade, what happened? About 2001, about 35.5% of Indian families have had access to banking facilities.
35.5%.
2001. 2011 census talks about 58.7%. So we are far, far away from the ideal world. I think there have been a lot of talks. Banks are, no offense intended, they are simply not willing to do this because it's a granular and small, transaction cost is so much and all. And because banks are not doing it, which is why MFIs are doing it, which is why money lenders are there. Now, if money lender can make money at 60% interest rate, if MFIs can make money at for 22 to 26% interest rate, why can't bank make money? Because in rural India, it's the access to credit that is what is more important. Availability to credit. Bankers will not do that. If my daughter is getting married, or my cow died, or my child needs to be taken to a hospital, banker is not there, money lender is there, and MFIs are there. So now, why are banks not doing it? I won't blame them, because systematically, today I am a bank employee, I am based in Singapore, I come back and then chairman sends me to one village. You know, there is absolutely no, there is no systematic approach of how to tackle this. You need to have a rural cadre, which they will be maybe the local guy and all. And also, the trade unions will not allow the banks to have a different kind of salary structure. So, employee in Bombay will get X, and a similar rank of employee in a very remote village will get X minus 1 or 2% the city allows. So, there has to be some way to do this, and if you go purely by numbers, then I would think that banking inclusion has done, because we have 147 million no-frill accounts. That's slightly dated, it could be more, but ask the bankers how many of them are operative. I am told less than 19%.
No bank has lost money on any BC. No BC has run away with money, there has been no frauds, there have been nothing.